of all, well, thank you for joining me on today's episode. So let's see. We are gonna go over the teams that I would say we can go over, specifically the teams that are not currently in the playoffs, and pretty much go. What would you do? Would you blow, if you're the general manager? Would you blow it up? Or would you stay course and continue going, and maybe obviously add a couple people via free agency, or get it in trade? What would your point and thought would be? And you'll talk, I'll talk, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's start with the worst team in the East, and I'll just kind of go by division, and we'll start with the East. So Atlanta. What would you do? I don't think so much you would blow it up, because you can't really blow it up any more than it already is, because it's they're the worst team in the East with 20 wins in the season, in a shortened season, but in the season, 20 wins. They have Trae Young, they have John Collins. They have Clint Capella they traded for. So what do you do? What would be the next step you would take if you're the Atlanta Hawks?
Well, I think that this stays the course. They're not going to get any free agents, even though if money gets tight somewhere else, if there's no money to be had from the contenders, then somebody probably will join Atlanta on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal to play with Trae Young. But Clint Capella is not going to get it done.
What do you think about that trade altogether? That trade kind of caught me off guard, because I was kind of curious of why they made that trade. Andre Drummond to me would have made a little bit more sense, especially because they didn't really have to give up much to get him, and everyone was talking about him being a free agent this year. He has a player option this year. I don't think Drummond's gonna be like, I'm gonna give up this $27 million contract. He's probably just gonna go ahead and opt into that 1 year and kind of go from there. That's what I would do anyway. But who knows? You see random stuff happen in free agency. People start promising you things, and you kind of go from there. But
and I think they just got to wait it out. They're not going to get a top-tier free agent, but I think like a lot of these other teams, they got to hope that the money dries up real quick, and they could get a steal, somebody that they thought was going to get a max, all of a sudden has to sell for lower money. And again, having a guy like Trae Young is going to help, because he's a building block, but I don't see them going anywhere. And so I just keep the course. I mean, like you said, there was not really much they could do to blow it up. They already started over. What pick did they have in the draft? It's a top 5, right?
No, I don't think it is, actually. I think.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Let's see. I believe it's like the 7th pick.
Okay.
NBA draft 2020. So NBA mock draft. Let's say they have. Atlanta's 6. Yeah, Atlanta's 6.
Okay. Well, here's the thing with the draft. And I know, again, off the subject a little bit, but this is going to be the weirdest draft ever, because they didn't get to see the full year college.
Yep.
LaMelo Ball was in Australia.
Yeah.
And we don't know who's coming from other parts of the country that weren't scouted. Mm-hmm. So just like the NFL draft, the NBA draft is going to be a lot of intrigue. You're going to have guys that should have never got drafted are going to get drafted high, and you're going to have guys like we were talking about earlier with Covington that did get drafted and outperformed the number 1 pick in the draft that year.
Yeah, absolutely, could happen.
It gets down to scouting, like we've talked about before, and whoever did their homework is get. Let's say someone falsified that any other year would have been the first pick, but since they weren't scouting as well, because they couldn't see him because of the coronavirus, that number 5 pick could turn out to be the best player in the draft. So again, stay young. Stay mobile, and I would not blow it up. Like I said, there's not much to blow up.
Right, there isn't much to blow up, but what would be a move that you would do? Would you just continue the course as it is and not really make any moves, or are you going to make some moves? Because they only have $58 million in the cap. I know the cap's supposed to go down lower than everyone was more anticipating. So it was supposed to be like 106 or something like that. So I'm assuming it'll probably be around like 98. But so that'll leave Atlanta with a lot of cap ability to go forward into the year. Looking at their free agents, they got Chandler Parsons, which they most likely won't bring him back, or at least definitely not for the salary of $25 million he was making last season. Jeff Teague making $19 million off the books. They'll have Clint Capella. They still have Dedmon. If I were them, I would look to trade Dedmon as he has 2 more years remaining on his contract. They have DeAndre Hunter, which really didn't impress me as much as I was hoping he would. That was the pick that technically was drafted from the Lakers and then in the trade for Anthony Davis. Right. They had Trae Young. Cam Reddish didn't really have too great of a year. They had John Collins. They have the Kevin, what a great name, was a Hooter. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's a white kid shooter.
He's a shooter. Yeah, he's a shooter. No, and he's a good piece, and Collins is a good piece. I don't know if I would make too many trades because they're young. And who's out there? Who's tradable? I mean, do they go after any of the Sixer guys?
Yeah, there's no one.
Do they go after any of those guys? I don't know. I don't know who's going to be in the market. And here's another thing too. We're not guaranteed a season next year, so
that's true.
If you trade for a guy that's worth $27 million and you don't have a season, that's expensive.
Well, if they don't have a season,
even though it's a cap league,
if they don't have a season, from what I've heard, is they just push it out a year. So your contracts, you're not getting paid because if there's no season, you're not getting paid. So your contract just goes forward an extra year because that's what they were talking about. When the whole thing ended, they were like, well, we would continue the season even if it's a year out the road. And then they were, no one's a free agent. Just basically what happened now, because technically I think all the contracts would have already expired for the year, a month or a couple months ago. But because of this, they had to push it out further. Because of the situation with COVID-19. But looking at it, being where they are, I mean, I honestly think they could be a playoff team next year. I mean, they just have to make a couple tweaks. And honestly, I would go with getting rid of the head coach, to be honest with you, especially if there's a head coach out there. And I know you and I were talking about this, and I actually held that in. I want to tell you just right away. But what coach I'd be looking to get, especially if they lose in the second round?
Who?
D'Antoni, the one we just watched win this first round series. If you get
that is not a bad call.
If you get D'Antoni
really
with
that system.
that
system
Young
for Atlanta.
Trae Young would kill it.
Imagine this Trae Young and Steve Nash 2.0.
Yep. And he always said he believes he's more like a Steve Nash. But any time that D'Antoni has been successful, he's had a good ball handler, a great ball handler with them. So he had it with Nash, he's had it with Harden, and I think that team would actually be better in Atlanta with his kind of the way that he is. His style of play would be great with Atlanta.
Yeah, I you know what? I think that's a great call. I know they haven't gone other places. But
if I was D'Antoni, that's what I want. I mean, you have a young player that's willing to go. He loves Steve Nash, and the connection with him and Steve. I mean, that would just be perfect, I think. And Steve Nash give him a call and go, "Hey, man, this D'Antoni, he can make your career. Like he'll make you." And you got to think about it too. If you're Atlanta, you look bad because you had Luka. You literally drafted Luka Doncic, and then you traded him, and he looks now like he's a superstar. So now you you still got an all-star level player, but the fact that you literally drafted that superstar and then you traded him away. You look a little bit bad. But if you're only 1 year removed and then Luka blows up and he's like a Steve Nash 2.0, like you were saying, but can shoot even better from the three, like a between of Curry and Steve Nash, like then you're looking like, oh my God, okay, you did not make the wrong move. They're both special and great players, and then you kind of just go from there. They could both be the face of the NBA going forward in the league.
I like
with Giannis. So that's what I would do. Free agent wise, there's really not too much great players. I know Gordon Hayward's a free agent, but he has a player option, so I really doubt he's opting out. There's so many players that have player options that most likely will be opting back in. So
Right.
it's really hard to go on exactly who's those free agents. But yeah, with Clint Capella, that really hurts you. But I think Desmond, I think you kind of get rid of him, and then try to, because you really don't need him as much, and kind of go from there. But yeah, with the draft, is there anyone in particular that catches your eye that would actually work pretty well for them, you think? Because they
Well,
have.
no, I mean, the guy that he won't drop that far, but it'd be interesting if LaMelo Ball is there at 5 or at 6.
Yeah, I know we were talking about
another
that.
shooter. And
Yeah.
again, don't know if teams are going to be weary of him because of his, family. But could you imagine him and Trae Young and those guys? Like I said, the one shooter you're talking about, they'll have some shooters.
Yeah.
So that would be, someone that I look for. Do they try to go up in the draft and try to get him? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of moves are made. But as far as the draft goes, like I said, didn't get to watch that much college basketball. I mean, I was waiting for the tournament, and then all of a sudden, coronavirus came and gave us a visit. So
Right.
you get to see a lot of these guys, and then there's a lot of overseas guys. I mean, the guy that went to Memphis, I think his name is Wiseman.
Yeah, Wiseman.
He's a big guy,
Yep.
and in most other, if he would have played, he might be the first player picked in the draft, and he could be the next Hakeem Olajuwon, or he can be the next, Greg Oden. We don't know. I don't know if he's shoot or not. And it's funny, watching NBA now, you really don't need a 5. They're just there. They're almost like 3-and-D players now without the 3. They're just defenders. It is kind of funny that there isn't that many good offensive-minded centers. So do you need one? So
yeah, I'm not quite sure I go that route, and it's weird because I would say if you look over the history of any 1 or 2 guard that's been successful, you can see in the history that they've had either a strong number 1 or point guard, or a strong number 2, whichever the opposite their position, their co-player on the backcourt. They've had a strong defensive player that was able to really help them out on the defensive end. Like Allen Iverson had Eric Snow when he was at his highest. Klay Thompson has played with Steph Curry. Kobe Bryant had Derek Fisher, was a lot better, defender. Well, not so much a better defender. Kobe was a really good defender anyway.
Right.
But they had that, so that makes it really, really hard. So with Atlanta, I guess you can go one of 2 ways. Though we only had 1 round of success, though it is impressive what Oklahoma City did, because to be honest with you, that's probably the easiest way to go. There's so many decent to really good to great point guards that it might not be a bad idea to just have 3-point. They were playing 3-point guards a good portion of that game, or the whole series, the season, I'm sure. But that's not it might not be a really bad way to go, figuring if LaMelo Ball does fall that far. I don't know if he does. I know when we talked about previously, we were talking about, I was saying he could fall as far as 7 to Detroit. I don't think he'll fall to 8 to New York, but that's as far as I can see he could fall because of fit. But at the same time, after watching Oklahoma City, it's a copycat league. I could totally see a team that already has a point guard, just go ahead and get him. Because I know Cleveland, they did that last year. I think they got Garland. He was more of a point guard. They kind of moved him to a 2.
That's the guy you like, right?
Yeah, I liked him a lot. And he had a pretty decent season. But anyways, we could definitely see that happening. And it'll either go that way where I think that if it was me, I would go more towards a defensive player. But at the same time, if a player that good, and I think LaMelo Ball could be the best player in the draft. I'm not saying he will be. I'm just saying he has the talent to be.
But he has potential. Yeah.
If he fell to 6, I would take him. I wouldn't trade up to get him. But honestly, there's really no one in this draft that I'm like I would trade up to get. There's not like oh my god, amazing. Yeah. So there's no LeBron James. There's no Luka. Anything like that.
No,
so I think there's some pretty decent players further down in the draft
that we know of. That's the funny part that we know of.
Right.
You know, like the kid from Georgia, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
He could turn out to be a superstar. I've never seen him play. You know, I was looking forward to seeing him play in the tournament, and then gone. And again, Wiseman, could be really good, but we'll never know.
Right.
He could be Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would go that low. So
Yeah.
we'll see.